Hello from London, UK. I'm Kyle Hannon, and this is the Go Beyond Disruption podcast. It's brought to you by the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, the unified voice of AICPA and CIMA. Every week, you'll get insights from inside the accounting and finance profession that help you stay ahead of the curve, whatever business you're in, and you can get these podcasts absolutely free, completely automatically, from wherever you can access the internet. Use your smartphone or your computer. You can search on Google. Just look for Go Beyond Disruption podcast. It should turn up. You can just hit the subscribe button, get every new episode as it comes out. Follow us on Spotify. You can use Apple Podcasts or any podcast app. Search for Go Beyond Disruption podcast. Hit the subscribe button. You'll get every episode, and we've got plenty to share. The one we're sharing this week is a recording of the most recent of our 3 live Q&A webcasts, which explored regional perspectives on how accounting professionals are managing the local impact of this coronavirus pandemic. Originally, this was streamed live on March 30th, so that was about 2 weeks ago. And we'd done 2 webcasts, one on the UK and the EU, and then another on the US perspective. But this one switches focus to East Asia. And that's where we were joined from by a panelist from Hong Kong and another one from Shanghai. And as before, we took questions via email and also during the live chat. Now, it is worth mentioning that this was all done over the telephone, which is why it sounds the way it does. And before you get to hear it, it's also worth mentioning that if you've got any questions or if you need information about the AICPA and CIMA's response to the pandemic, or about its guidance and resources for members, students, as well as the wider profession, wherever they are, just go online to our coronavirus resource centres. You'll find one at aicpa.org/coronavirus, or you can use the CIMA Global website, cimaglobal.com/coronavirus. Now, you don't have to scribble those down because you'll find those links in the show notes for this episode. Talking of which, here for episode 105 is our edited version of that conversation about managing the local impact of a global disruption. This is a live Q&A, and if you have any questions at all about how to manage for the local impact of this global disruption from the East Asian perspective, then please put them into the Q&A, into the chat room that you will see on the screen in front of you. We'll see them and we'll do our best to answer them. Let me talk about the 2 gentlemen who are joining me as part of our discussion. Dr. William Chen is the CFO of Quasar Engineering. He's Vice Chairman of North Asia Regional Advisory Panel for the AICPA, and he's an adjunct professor at Griffith University in Brisbane, Australia, and he is based in Hong Kong. From Shanghai, he is the Chief Financial Officer, the Chief Investment Officer, and the Deputy General Manager of Mitsui Sumitomo Insurance China, John Zheng. He is also a council member and a non-executive board member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accounting. That is CIMA. Both those gentlemen are joining us by telephone from different parts of the world, so we must apologize for the fact that the line quality may not be great. Let's talk to our panelists. Let's start by going to Shanghai. John Zheng, tell us a little bit about you and your role at Mitsui Sumitomo Insurance.
Very glad to have the chance to share the experience here. I'm John Zheng from China, and I work as the Deputy General Manager and the Chief Investment Officer and the Chief Financial Officer. I'm also have another titles, the Chief Risk Officer and the Chief Infrastructure Officer. So I have covered the IT, covered the risk management, actuarial, investment. I think the back office of the insurance company named Mitsui Sumitomo, one of the biggest insurance group in Japan, and the second place in the foreign insurance market in China. So we are doing quite well as a property insurance company in China. So I'm covered for the back office. That's how my brief introduce. And I also work as the volunteer council member of the CIMA. Thank you.
We're also joined from Hong Kong by Dr. William Chen. Dr. Chen, William, you have quite a few roles and quite broad experience. I did mention that you were an adjunct professor at an Australian university. Give us a sense of where you work. What's your role? What do you do in Hong Kong? And tell us something about quasi-engineering.
Thank you for giving me the chance to share this experience. I'm working for Quasar as a Chief Financial Officer, and Quasar is a medical device manufacturer with manufacturing plants in southern China, with headquarters in Hong Kong, and we also have engineering research and development center in Israel. Our products focus on cardiovascular sensor and respiratory toolset with oxygen testing. So basically, we do all the manufacture for the medical supplies. And apart from my several roles with Quasar, I also voluntarily to help or to participate with the CIMA and the association. And so given that I have some doctorate degree, so I got the chance sometimes to share with the university students.
Thank you very much. So the type of work that both of you gentlemen do can obviously continue to an extent remotely. But before we were forced to all be working remotely, as we're all doing now, what would your day have normally be like? John Zheng, back to you. Give me an idea of where you would normally be working from on a normal working day and how things have changed for you.
Okay, it's changed, I think changed a lot. To be honest, I'd like to say, as you know, I start my accounting life from 22 years ago. So normally, as you know, for insurance company, typical, it's a typical and long history industrial. Most of people with tie, with suit, and in the lecturer office, I think so, in the downtown. So everyone should be on time, especially in the Japanese company. You should go to there 9 o'clock, leave the office 5 o'clock. Everyone should stay in the office and use the computer, personal PC before this crisis. But after that, this is my 22 years life, you know. It's typical, I think it's typical insurer's life. But after this, as you know, within these 2 months from February, we work remotely from home, working from home. I think most of the time, for example, we really go to back office just from this week. Before this week, I only go to office for twice a week. And stay in office maybe only within 4 hours. Most of job we change to the laptop remotely, as you know. But fortunately, I'd like to tell the story. Before this, we have 70% of the staff. They have already got the laptop, and they also get the VPN. They can easily to access the core business system. They can do everything. But after that, nowadays, 99% of the staff, we get the laptop, we can working from home. So this changes tremendously. And nowadays, the management team is considering about and talking about how make the job more flexible. This is the future, more agile. So I think
yes, and the future has come to us unexpectedly early, hasn't it?
Yeah,
the future has become the present. Dr. Chen, William, from your perspective there in Hong Kong, what have been the biggest differences between the usual workday where you'd normally be working from and where you're working now?
Actually, before the COVID-19, I based in Hong Kong, but since we have manufacturing plants in southern China, so I also frequently travel to the plant because for the manufacturing, it is a people business, So we need to meet and also to have the meetings. And also since we also have the R&D center in Israel, so sometimes I need to travel to there. But in the past 2 months, all the travel ban and I didn't go to France for 2 months, and we communicate with the office in Southern China, in Israel, through telephone call and video conference. So definitely there is something that we need to adjust, and that is life. That's a change.
Okay, so big changes for everyone, and the conversation at the moment is all about how to manage the local impact of a global disruption. We are taking an East Asian regional perspective, and to help, I'm joined from Hong Kong by Dr. William Chen, CFO for Quasar Engineering, and from Shanghai, John Zheng, who is CFO and Chief Investment Officer for Mitsui Sumitomo Insurance China. We've heard about the changes that you gentlemen have had to make, like so many of us, but let's talk about how you've responded to the situation by continuing to do the things that you've always done. Let's start with something more positive. John, tell me something that you, in your role, have been able to keep doing despite these disruptions. How have you managed that? Because you did mention that you've already made sure that you have a VPN, you have a laptop, so you know you can work remotely. But let's talk about what those tools and that technology has allowed you to keep delivering.
I'd like to say that interesting things happened is that, as you know, I'm in a very ancient industrial, but in the 5 years ago, many new innovation comes in China, comes in Silicon, in America, Silicon, and also comes in Europe. So, for example, as you know, in this time, I'm also very, I don't know William's feelings, that I'm also very astonished that in China, the technology changed so rapidly, and I think, for example, for our company, for my company, and for my peer companies, our competitors, we will find that firstly, for example, we can easily use the VPN to solve the job, solve the problem, but otherwise, the technology really changed our business and our life. For example, we have set up many RPA, RPA robots, the robots process automation. So as you know, nowadays, not only the financial job in my company, I think 80% of the routine job has already take place by the RPAs. And very interesting things is that, for example, the underwriting claim reinsurance, they also, even including the administration, they also have 70% of the job have been taken place by the RPAs. This is very interesting. As you know, why I also analyzed the previous 2 months, the work volume of this job, our work volume. I find it's just very close to last year. But as you know, the staff they can take easy. They not work overtime, although they work from home. But in the last year they work overtime. But in current year, even they work from home, they not work overtime. So I think technology improved much in the previous 1 year, especially for the RPAs, especially for the system. So this helped a lot. But another thing is that, as you know, that in a life insurance, as a property insurance company, as you know, we have prepared a good contingency plan. That means BCP plan. We have already prepared. And I think we are so lucky. In last year, I think, as I remember, as you know, I'm in charge of the risk management team. So we have do the BCP exercise in the October. And in that time, we just do a BCP like that our main building has been cracked. there is no May building for us, and the May information server has been destroyed, and we use the backup system. Everything is used backup and working from home.
I have a couple of questions about business continuity plans, which I'll get to in a few minutes. But perhaps continuing the discussion about Plan B and then maybe a Plan C. And I know that William from Hong Kong, who talked about the supply chains. We have a question here that's coming from Irlan Tam. I'm not sure where Irlan is based. We would just say that for all those people who are sending in questions, and Angus, good to know that you can hear us now, so welcome to the webcast. I'm glad our tech team were able to sort that out. Welcome. I would invite people who submit questions to tell us where they are. So if you give us a sense of which country you're in, maybe what sector you're in, then perhaps that gives us a little bit more context to help us answer your questions. So William, this from Irlan Tam, the question is, how do we manage supply chains remotely? How do we manage those effectively during these kind of disruptions? So that's, I think, one that you would be able to answer quite effectively. That seems to be something that you do day in and day out.
Sure. Let me just tell the experience or what we have done. We call that the outbreak of COVID-19 to other provinces in China happened around Chinese New Year, which is the 3rd or 4th week of January. And because of Chinese New Year, our staff, almost 1,000 staff, went back to their hometown, spread over the whole China. And we plan to resume the production on February 3rd. But because of the outbreak, and then some provinces has been locked down, and the government also postponed the working day. Okay, you can imagine all the people remotely, and then how can we recall, and then how do we, to resume the production. This is really an important question for the supply chain. Not only the material, also for the people. So what our company did, it is during the Chinese New Year, we set up a dedicated task force, including the CEO, myself, the operation director, supply chain director, and commercial director. So all of us spread over in China, Hong Kong, and Israel. What we do is we have a daily meeting through video conference, and we initiate our contingency plan. But imagine we need to connect all 1,000 staff all over to China. So we make use of the different WeChat group and also the video conference call daily. And we also need to prepare for the meeting with the government's health and safety requirement to resume production. We also need to review our material level to ensure that once we got the people back, we have sufficient material to start with. Also, we need to communicate with the customers because our customers is in overseas. They're very worried about when we can resume the production. So all this required really a lot of the information transparency and also the frequent communication. So to answer Ireland, the question it is how can we do it remotely? It is first of all we need to have a very systematic way of the information sharing, and also we need to meet really promptly and regularly. So because of all the good work, we can resume the production on February 13 and 14, and then to catch up the backlog. So this is something that I will say information priority is one thing, but also the teamwork, agility is also very important.
And when we look at the plans we've made, we know that many business continuity plans tend to focus on short-term disruptions. They may focus on things like emergency on site, cybersecurity, hacks, perhaps something in the line of a storm or perhaps a civil unrest. I know that's very much like California, like Louisiana, New Orleans, like Kansas and the USA that suffer from tornadoes. There are several regions in your part of the world there in East Asia which experience natural disasters, things like earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis. And there have also been previous epidemics of disease which were very significant regionally, but of course on a much smaller scale compared to the massive scale of what we're faced with now with COVID-19. Looking back on some of the lessons that your local business communities have learned from those previous experiences, how do you think they apply in this time of the coronavirus crisis? I think, John, let me take this back to you in Shanghai. What have you seen local business communities learn from previous experience of disasters and regional disruption?
Yeah, to be honest, I think I'd like to take two parts. One is for the local community, and another is for my company. I think, as you know, my company is very special. For the local community, it's very interesting things is we learn much from 2003, the SARS. In that time, as you know, in Shanghai and other cities, not so severe, but this time, in the local communities, especially the business local communities, you will find very interesting that almost all the company originally were competitors, for the insurance company. But in that time, we are cooperated so good that we can share the industry information by each other, and we even share the network by each other. Since in that time, the first priority is to keep the staff security. And second is keep the good customer service. Then the last one to consider the profit. So in the local community, in that time, we really learned much from the 2003 SARS business, and most of the system we have already have the most of the I know the most of the financing institutions, they have a backup system. They can start it to the remote work from home. This is the local community. But from my company, it's very interesting things is that my company is based in Japan, a Japanese company. Is so many things, as you mentioned in that earthquake, hurricane, and tsunami. So we have already had such kind of system. Each year, we will prepare for the business contingency plan, and we also will do the exercise. For the last year, I just mentioned, we are not prepared. We just do the exercise for that. We have really disappeared for the home office, the physical office, and we really have no such main server. We need to start up the backup server. So we really do such kind of exercise. So why we have so many people, we have the laptop, we have the VPN prepared, since we have already get such kind of knowledge. So really we have got such good prepare. And as I know, in the financing institution, most of the company in China, I think in North Asia, including China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Japan, Korea, they also have such kind of BCP plans. So I think most of the company in this time, not only in China and in Hong Kong, I think there is no disaster to these companies. So I think the performance of this company, the industry is quite good. Not only the insurance company, but also the banks, also the security companies. I think it's good.
Let's go back to Hong Kong. William Chen, we're talking about the ways that local business communities can benefit from previous exposure to disasters. And you may have seen in your experience certain lessons learned. How have you been able to apply those today?
In Hong Kong, we did experience the SARS in 2003, and also we did also have some experience to how to to protect the staff safe, and how to do it to resume the business. But for this COVID-19 this time it is really quite different because the widespread and also the impact. So I think, as you mentioned, that although we all have the different kind of the business continuity plan, but we really need to the team and the people to adjust. Whatever the plan, it is good. The execution, now we are talking about the speed of execution is so important, given that we also with the news change, all the news every day change. So I would say I will still want to focus the execution of the plan is more important. And then the other side, it is we need to assess the business regularly, like we're treating business like a human body. We need different kind of the information or the indicators that we need to assess, like we have the regular pulse, and then to see how we adjust. So I would say the information transparency, and we need to have a quick estimate of financial impact is very important.
You talked about volatility. The speed of change is something that we've never really seen before. And let's talk a little bit about that volatility, especially perhaps when it comes to small businesses, because business communities that are made up in very, as you say, many different parts, just like for every corporation, for every massive enterprise, for every chaebol in Korea, you will have hundreds of thousands of small micro businesses, street traders, very small enterprises. And of course, the way that they manage this kind of situation is entirely different. So perhaps if I could ask you, William, in your experience of how many different layers of business, how many different size businesses make up a business's community, do you see that there are ways that the government or the state in Hong Kong, for example, is supporting businesses that perhaps are different to the way that they may be supporting businesses here in the UK or perhaps in the USA? What are some of the differences in the way that businesses being assisted by local government or the state?
Let me speak in two regions. I mean, Hong Kong and also China, because we've got the manufacturing plants in China. And in Hong Kong, I think the government also do some subsidy in terms of the particular for those being hit severely, like the food and beverage, retail, and hospitality. I think the government did some subsidy on it. But in terms of the strength, I mean, in terms of the speed, I think that we can. I mean, the government can do a little bit more. But in the other way, that in southern China, I think the government also supports quite a lot in terms of the subsidy locally. So in that sense, I think both different government also do a very good job in terms of the support. But you just mentioned, how do we, being a community with different business that can help? It is a chain reaction. For example, like our case, we need some supply from the other supplier. If that supplier they can't resume production, we also can't to do the production. So I think that kind of the chain reaction, it is very critical, particularly in this moment. And now the outbreak is going now to the overseas, like in US and UK. In February, we are very concerned. We are very concerned about the price within China. Now we concern the supplies from overseas, whether they can do the ship the supplies to us. So now it is really a global village interlinked. So yeah, a lot of new things that we need to learn every day and to react every day.
That, I think, is the benefit of hearing perspectives from different parts of the world, the UK last week, the USA last week, and then today, the third of our live webcasts from the ARCPA and CIMA, looking at the regional perspective, how we manage the local impact of this global disruption, and hearing it from the East Asian regional perspective. Like almost all of us listening today, working in a very different situation. Working from home, many of us can. Many of us have the technology, but perhaps because of all the other people in the house, it's a little less easy than the technology would make us believe. We have to do things like cope with children in the house, pets needing to be taken for a walk, bored wives or husbands sitting playing the Xbox, trying to stop the children from using the internet because we need it for video conferencing. All of those are things that somehow you don't really plan for in your business contingency plan. But however we cope, we may have questions about how we can do that better. And that's why I'd like to invite any of our audience to submit questions. You can do that via the Q&A in this webpage that you are listening to this webcast on. And you can submit the questions, tell us where you are, and we'll do our best to answer your question. We just wanted to welcome those people who've joined us. We know that Angus is with us, Nancy, Ada, Kenvin, as well as Laiho, Linda, Catherine, and many other people who are joining us. And if you have questions, please do submit them. I'm joined by Dr. William Chen from Hong Kong, who is the CFO of Quasar Engineering Limited, and the CFO of Mitsui Sumitomo Insurance China, John Zheng from Shanghai. John, a question for you, because you're in the insurance business. How does a business assess its ability to cope? How does it know when it needs to get some help?
To be honest, this is a very interesting situation. It's a good question. Is that, I don't know. For example, as you know, we're dealing every day, for an insurance company, we're dealing with the risk management every day. We provide the risk solution. So from my point of view, I'm in charge of the back office, and I also work with the underwriting and the claim team. Our target is that provide very good quality service. But as you know, in the current situation, the crisis, the coronavirus, as you know, it's really, 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 really hard to cooperate and to assess. So as you know, for us, for an insurance financial institution, we always not only help ourselves, but our clients to build up their stress test. You know, this is very, very interesting and very, very important. We know that we can understand the situations that where we are, and in the short term, what we need to do, and in the long term, what we need to do. And in the same time, as you know, very interesting things is that as an accountant and also as an insurer, we need to know the cost, how to cope with it. I think this is my answer.
And we have a question that has come from a gentleman based in Saudi. Mohammed Siraj asks, what are the cost savings options available for corporates during these times? So, John, I was talking to you, so perhaps I could ask you to just add to your answer. What are some of the immediate cost-saving options that a corporate may be able to use during times like these?
I think several kind of costs we can saving. First is that from the new technology, as I mentioned, for example, RPA, for the automation, for the blockchain, and the AI, we can adopt this new technology to saving the human resource, human cost from this time, and we can remote work from home. We can make the job more easy. For example, you can even take care about your children, and in the same time you just work from home. And I think the cost will be lower than we work in the office. We can remote. We have no office. This is very amazing in this time. We're also trying to do so. I think the insurance industry in future also will change a lot. This is the first for the technology. And in the second, I think the business model might be changed a lot. For example, I think the communication, as you know, we are B2B company. Originally, we needed sales representative to the marketing people to go outside to our clients and face-to-face to talk to them. But in previous 2 months, we just use the video to communicate with our clients, with the vendors. I think this is also quite efficient. We also can saving the communication cost. So I think these 2 points I would like to recommend.
So communications costs and the fixed costs of premises and perhaps travel, that's certainly a good start. William from Hong Kong, from your perspective, how would you answer Mohammed Siraj's question? What are the cost savings options available for corporates? What would you suggest?
It really depends on the industry and business, but I think definitely one thing, immediate saving is the travel cost because we can't travel at the moment. But when we think deeply, really sometimes it is not only save the cost, also sometimes by using of technology, we can also speed up the process. Although we understand that for the business, we can't eliminate all travel because we still need to have some human touch, some human exchange of the communication. But that one thing, it is important because we are in the manufacturing. Because of the travel ban, what we do is we make use of the camera and some of the movable small robot, so that the client in overseas, like in US, they can also and see what we do in terms of the process, because that is also important that they can we don't affect our process, manufacturing process or engineering process, given that for the travel ban. So this is one thing. Also that we need, being a CFO, I think we all need to think about the handbrake and break the glass actions. What that means it is on one side we need to adjust smartly on the expenses to preserve cash, but we also don't want to affect our muscle of the business. That means when the economy resume, I mean when it recover, so do we have the strength to rebound? So this is very important that we need to assess promptly. And on the other hand, if really the case goes very bad, what are the emergency glass that we can break it so that we don't let the company fall into a very difficult situation. So we, at the moment, I think all of us is very busy to list out all the items that what we can do.
From the perspective of a leader, perhaps someone in the C-suite, a senior leadership team member who is now in a situation where they have to lead remotely. You've mentioned something very interesting, use of a remote-controlled robot with a camera on it to give almost virtual walkthroughs and allow people to almost walk through facilities and plants and offices in different parts of the world. I think that's fascinating. But ultimately, it does come down to the business you're trying to do. So a question for you, William. When you are a CFO or someone who has to chair the operations of a particular organization, how would senior leadership be able to use remote dashboards or automation to actually run and lead and direct a team remotely when you as the leader can't leave the house?
Yes, I think since the team work remotely and in different part of the region, so we need to have a common information. So definitely the dashboard is important that we all look into the same information. And also, we also communicate on the same platform. And particularly during this period, the change moved so fast. The open communication and then common understanding of the same piece of the requirement or the direction is very important. And so what we do, it is we have been doing very good in terms of the automation, but I think definitely this is one of the agenda item for me to work on going forward, that how to update the information promptly. And also, the important thing it is we need to be prepared for different scenarios. So scenario planning, it is another aspect that we need to work on during this period.
If we take that discussion off to John Zheng in Shanghai, John, when you use technology to keep one's eyes on how different teams are doing, do you make use of remote productivity dashboards, online tools? What are you seeing as particularly effective? Are you discovering anything new, any new tools that perhaps you wouldn't have considered using a few months ago, which suddenly have become vital?
Yes. Very interesting thing is that we have 6 city operation already in China, and this time really amazing things happen is that most of the staff cannot go to the office, and they should stay in home and work from home remotely, and they should finish everything in home. So I think several keywords I'd like to give to you. First is the innovation, especially the automation and the virtualization. For the automation, we use the RPA, everything. We can, just as I said, we can deduct the jobs, deduct the work volume for the routine jobs and make it more accurate and make it more efficient. And the second is that we use the visualization, the business intelligence and the artificial intelligence. As you know, most of the reports we can easily get from our laptop, from our server on the cloud. So this is help us much. We can see the performance of all the, not for the staff, but for all the procedures. This is very amazing job we have done. And this is for the innovation and automation. And the other part, and we need to encourage our staff to think a lot, think bigger, and think a lot. Since, as you know, we face the coronavirus, it's our enemy. So in this time, we also built up a trust and together culture in the company itself. For the trust and together, every day we will set up a video conference maybe in the noon every day. I think it's in early, not early morning. I think it's in the noon. We were just talking about everyday situation and share the information with each other. Let all the staff know the senior leaders are working with them and cooperate with them and get their feedback. Make the trust and together culture. So I think this is two parts. One is from the automation, innovation. Another is from the culture. Yeah.
William, the culture, communications is incredibly important. And what have you felt are the distinctions, the differences between the culture of the business communities and the way they've responded to the situation, how they managed it? If you compare the response of the business communities in Southeast Asia compared to how you see the business communities responding in the EU or the UK or the US, would you say there are significant and noticeable cultural differences, the way that people approach it in terms of mindsets? Take us a bit away from the technology into the hearts of the business community itself.
I think I can see lots of good positive things. We all work very closely, and then also put it this way, we communicate transparently and openly that what it is happening and also what needs to be done. And the team really do a very actively and also proactively. I mean, not only waiting instruction, but also suggest a lot of good things. So I can see that the team work, the team building is really doing good during this crisis. People are more closely and more proactive. We also want to fight this crisis together and then to overcome this. So that's what I can say, the experience in the past 2 months. Although we are now facing another wave of challenges because of the change in the business environment in US and Europe, but still we can say this is a very positive way of the teamwork, and that's it.
Working together as a team, as you say, people may be in different parts of the world, but their approach to it does seem to be very much along the same lines. People treating it as a common challenge to overcome and really, for the most part, doing their best and working as teams, because suddenly we realize how important teams are. I think in situations like this, there's very little room for individual differences because we really are all in the same situation. But we mustn't always feel that we're the only team, the only company, the only organization that has to plan a path through it. We mustn't think that we're the only resource we have. This is a question for John Zheng in Shanghai, because, of course, with your experience in the insurance industry, I have a question about the legal or contractual options that may be open to companies, because I'm quite sure that there are so many companies out there that do not realize that perhaps in their insurance policies or in their legal documentation they have, which governs their service level agreements, perhaps there's paperwork that they need to look at more closely that will help them discover that there is something else there that could support them. Perhaps there's a clause in their service level agreement which makes it okay for them to not deliver on the exact day they promised. Perhaps there's something in their insurance policy which they could use to protect themselves. Perhaps there's a clause that they didn't pay much attention to. Do you think that we should pay more attention to the paperwork we already have? What's some of the advice you would give there?
Yeah, I'm working for the insurance industry for over 20 years. As my personal knowledge, I'd like to show you, don't be very serious with the paperwork. Why? It's not a joke. It's not a joke. As you know, that if you read back to the contract, you were crazy. You know, maybe a liability, you will have the paperwork about 100 papers. How can you deal with it? It's really, really hard. To be honest, this is from my professional side. The only way, my suggestion is that most of the companies just thinking have the insurance, they can cover everything. My personal suggestion is that don't treat an insurance company as an insurance protection company, but please treat an insurance company as a risk management solution provider. You can communicate with them in advance, not after that the claim happens. Please, this is my suggestion, is that please more frequent negotiate with your, negotiate is for the price, but communicate with your insurer. Please ask them to give you more advice on the risk solution. Not thinking that, don't treat that you sign off a contract, they can cover you everything. As you know, the contract is too really, really hard. You need to recruit a legal, you need a chief legal office to very, very key to the words and very, very key to the articles in the contract. I think this is really, really mission impossible. My suggestion is take your time to communicate more with the insurer and ask them to give you risk solution, not only the contract itself. But another side, your question, I just 1 minute more. Your question is right, that please, in this crisis, please open your contract, read through all the contracts, read through all the articles, and to find out the I think the policies, the words that is benefit for you. Please, now.
Very good suggestions. William Chen from Hong Kong, with your experience in supply chains, perhaps service level agreements, just-in-time deliveries, what would you say that businesses need to do to make sure that they start to accommodate the disruptions and the enforced flexibilities that are suddenly now very much a reality? What do they need to do differently in terms of how they work with suppliers and their service level agreements?
Yeah, I think we all understand from the books that we want to have a just-in-time inventory. And the reason it is to manage the working capital better. But given this situation, it is good, though, that we have to get the balance between the safety stock and just in time. We really need to think about the lead time. So when we work, to the supplier, that we try to pull in the order. Even though we place the order, and then we need to work with the supplier very closely, whether they can accommodate for delivery of the material a little bit earlier. And I think it really depends on the relationship or the partnership that we work with the suppliers. So that it is something that we are talking about, the partnership, really the real partnership, not only just the buzzword. So this kind of the relationship, it is very important.
We have one more question, and we only have 2 more minutes. I'm going to ask for a short answer from each of you gentlemen to the same question. This asks, looking forward, do you see long-term changes to your business models? Because of the coronavirus, how will your future business models change? William, seeing I'm hearing from you, what's your answer to that?
The business model, I don't think we change significantly, but although definitely there will be some fine-tuning. As I mentioned, we need to review the supply chain, how to make the more effectively and efficiently. And this is something that I think this is the focus within our industry.
And from Shanghai, the view from John Zheng. John, what do you think in long-term changes? What will change?
To be honest, it will change a lot. Firstly, the artificial intelligence will help much on the industrial, especially the financial institution. This is first. And the second, the business model will change the more flexible and more agile. That's my answer.
That's a great place to end our conversation. How do we manage the local impact of a global disruption? A regional perspective from East Asia. We have been joined from Hong Kong by Dr. William Chen, the Chief Financial Officer of Quasar Engineering, and from Shanghai, John Zheng, the CFO and Chief Investment Officer for Mitsui Sumitomo Insurance China. If you have any further questions, need any further information, please visit cemaglobal.com/coronavirus. From the UK office of the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, the AICPA and CEMA, I'm Kyle Hannon. Thanks so much to my guests, John Zheng and William Chen. And of course, thank you so much for joining us on this live Q&A. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond Disruption, brought to you by the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. Learn more about today's topic at aicpa-cima.com/disruption. This podcast is designed to provide illustrative information with respect to the subject matter covered and does not represent an official opinion or position of the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants or any of its subsidiaries or affiliates. It is provided with the understanding that the association, its affiliates, and subsidiaries are not engaged in rendering legal, accounting, or other professional services. If such advice or expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person should be sought. The association, its subsidiaries, and affiliates make no representations, warranties, or guarantees as to and assume no responsibility for the content or application of the material contained herein, and expressly disclaim all liability for such damages arising out of the use of, reference to, or reliance on such material.